All right, hey, welcome everybody to this edition of NFL Football Talk. I'm your host, Charles E. Smith Jr., and in just a moment I will bring on my co-host, Mr. Chris Lardieri. But remember, this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month in the NFL, so everybody get your pink ribbons on. And remember, I'm down with all those causes with the Save the Tatas and Rescue the Boobies and all those other things that they come up with. I know it sounds like I'm making fun, but serious. It's a serious issue. A lot of us know people who are affected, and I am down with the cause, as is Mr. Lardieri. Let's go ahead and bring him in right now, and that's why I'm wearing this electric magenta color shirt that I have on right now. Chris, what's happening?
Charles, not much. Very sharp. I'm very impressed with your dress as always. I'm glad the NFL is acknowledging something positive for women for a change. Better not say that too much around ESPN or I'll get suspended, as we addressed last week. But, the one thing I've noticed, kind of this talk has died down with the whole Ray Rice scandal and Adrian Peterson. And now we've moved on to actual football and the fact that the New England Patriots are dead, like the Giants were a couple weeks ago. We may as well just shovel dirt on them, right?
Well, the Patriots, and when you look at the Patriots season, we can go ahead and start there because Jamal Charles and the Chiefs really put a whooping on them this past Sunday night. But goodness, I mean, if we look at the Patriots, they got whooped by Miami in Week 1. They just got whooped by the Chiefs in Week 4. And in between, I mean, they beat Buffalo. And then, remember, they needed some last-minute heroics from Vince Wilfork just to beat Oakland. What was that, 16-9 or something like that?
Yeah.
And Oakland is a terrible team. So yeah, there's some stuff going on there in New England, and like they were talking about during the broadcast, they got rid of Logan Mankins. They let go of LeGarrette Blount, who's doing well now in Pittsburgh, the running back. So they may have finally just peeled away enough weapons that the offense can't function efficiently now. So it's all on the defense, and even though they have Darrelle Revis, it doesn't matter because the team can't score points right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is finally the year they're realizing they miss Wes Welker. Gronkowski's not the same, and I personally think Mankins is the biggest departure because Brady's been getting sacked and pressured far too much, and I still can't figure that out unless it was another one of Bill Belichick's grudges and he ended up in the doghouse. I'm not quite sure. Still can't figure out that trade, but that said, the AFC East should be renamed the AFC least. They can probably coast to 9-7 and pull away with that division.
Yeah, I'm wondering though, with my Dolphins and what Tannehill and the boys did to the Raiders over there across the pond in the UK though, and we look at all those teams bunched up at 2-2, and then there's the Jets, of course, but 2-2 teams. So when I look at the NFL though as a whole, and I was doing my power rankings for Examiner.com, the NFL power rankings, but I looked at it and there's 10 teams right now that are at 2-2. So a lot of those teams that we looked at the beginning of the season and said, well, the first quarter poll of the season, we'll see how they're doing. Most of those teams are 2-2, so we really don't know a whole lot about them anyway.
Yeah, we're only one quarter through the season. You really can't gauge a lot from that, but we're getting what the NFL always wanted, and that's a helping dose of parity.
Yep, that's true. And but you got to give it up to some of them, like Steve Smith going out and I guess leaving with a grudge against Carolina, but he came out there with Baltimore this weekend, and man, he just laid waste to his former team there, Carolina. He ran wild, 2 touchdowns, and they mopped the floor with Carolina. And you got to wonder, with the Carolina Panthers, with this whooping they took this week and what happened to them against Pittsburgh in the last game, maybe they're starting to trend downward a little bit because those teams that have just been good for maybe one season, the psyche can be a bit fragile.
Yeah, I think they are. And, the running backs they had were nothing to write home about, but now they're all hurt.
Right.
They've got no offensive weapons other than Kelvin Benjamin and Greg Olsen, and that puts a lot of pressure on Cam Newton, and the defense can only do so much. So, yeah, another division that's really shaking out oddly with the Saints' big loss to the Cowboys, the NFC South. I mean, does anyone want to win that division?
Yeah, I know, and and when you look at it though, I think the Saints may be kept in contention just because of everything going on. The Atlanta Falcons lost two of their starting offensive linemen are out for the season now. in this last game, so they're going to be hurting. So, that looked like a division where it was going to be one of those, the race to 11-5 or maybe 12-4, but that's looking like maybe a 9-7 might get it done too.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing the Saints have going for them is they play 8 games in the Superdome every year.
Right, but the Saints, they haven't been the Saints this year. And I'm used to seeing them lose games maybe, but lose them, 38-35. But, geez, what happened with them against Dallas was just unthinkable.
Yeah, I can't figure that out because, as we've documented many times on this show, Dallas does not have the greatest defense. So
right.
for Drew Brees not to be able to at least make it a shootout was a real head-scratcher.
Exactly. And, well, who knew that Mark Ingram was that big a part of their offense?
Yeah, this guy, they wondered if he was even worth a first-round pick a couple of years ago.
Yep, exactly. When you talk about the Cowboys, you got to give credit where it's due. DeMarco Murray, 4 straight 100-yard games, and it looks like, here's a radical concept. The run sets up the pass. What do you think about that? Have you ever heard of such a thing?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was many years ago. It was in the 1980s, and it was given to us by the likes of such dinosaurs as Joe Gibbs and Bill Parcells. But hey, it worked then, and it's working now.
Well, I look at with the Cowboys, when I look at their last dynasty in the 90s with, Aikman, Irvin, Emmitt Smith, all those guys, I remember what happened with that offense when Emmitt Smith was holding out. They couldn't move the ball. And it's the same thing here, and it's like they've finally taken this season to say, okay, run first, and then let Romo throw the ball. And it's working so far. Let's see if they stick to it, though.
Yeah, and I believe that was the year they went 0-2 and still made the playoffs.
Right.
One of the few teams that did that. So, yeah, people forget very quickly. I think Troy Aikman was like Matthew Stafford or Tom Brady or, you pick your quarterback. But they were not a pass-first team. The run set up the pass. And with that offensive line and the weapons he had, he ends up in the Hall of Fame.
Exactly. And then, you know what? How about your boy, though? I know you love the Giants. Eli Manning. He's coming around now. They lost 2. Now they won 2 straight. But they just destroyed the Washington Redskins last week in the nation's capital. And looks like he's got a few weapons working for him. So, hey, looks like it's coming around there.
Yeah, he sure does. And I even tweeted about this recently. Eli got a ton of blame last year, and I defend him objectively because, like I said, he had no offensive line last year, no weapons, no running game to speak of. This year, they find a breakout tight end in Larry Donnell. They've got Rashard Jennings as, yardage-wise, one of the top backs in the league. The offensive line is gelling, and lo and behold, they light up the Redskins. Like I said, it takes a while to figure out an offense. I personally thought they were more of an 8-8 team, and the Eagles have more talent. But in this division, anything can happen. It's wide open, and the rivalry teams, Cowboys, Redskins, even the Eagles, they'll all beat up on each other. And if you split, it's going to come down to those non-division games. That'll be the difference. And I've got a key one this week against the Falcons.
Yep, that's true. And when we start picking, we're going to pick that game too. That'll be a fun game to see as well. And what about the Eagles, though, with the chance to go in there and kind of, put a knockout punch on the Niners? The Eagles only crossed midfield, I think it was twice in that game, and it was in the last 5 minutes of the game too. But they scored a touchdown. They had a pick six, a punt return for a touchdown, and a blocked punt for a touchdown. Kept themselves in the game. So the Niners are still playing imperfect ball, but the Eagles went and kind of just fell flat there with no offense.
Yeah, and to their credit, the Niners played a nice defensive game, but with some helps from Chip Kelly, I really still don't understand why, with a penalty on a field goal, you put the Niners offense back on the field.
Right.
And then on top of that, they had a great drive at the end of the game. They go nearly over 90 yards, get the ball down there with the 49ers on their heels, and they got the bulk of that yardage to play before on a big run by McCoy, who hadn't done anything. And what do? They proceed to throw the ball 4 times and get nothing out of it.
Yeah,
So,
I know. That was strange. So
not a very Chip Kelly-like game.
No, it wasn't. But you know what? Let's switch to another team, though. The Packers. We just watched them destroy Minnesota tonight. But the way they took care of business, though, against Chicago, and there when you look at the management, what was Chicago doing the end of the first half? and there's Cutler down at the goal line. And what do they wind up with? Not 7 points, not 3 points, but time running out with the ball on the Green Bay 1 foot line.
Yeah,
and
another
then the
one I
roof
really
caved
don't
in
get.
the second half.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know who you blame there. I know the locals in Chicago and the media would love to blame Cutler. He's one of their favorite whipping boys. But at that point, too, that's just poor clock management. You can't let that happen when it's that close. You have to get points out of that. That's how momentum shifts and games change, and they did.
And, yeah, well, the other thing was that the last pass completed was, Cutler throwing a pass in the middle of the field in front of the goal line, and that's what really ran out all the time. But, the other side of the ball, Aaron Rodgers, he told us last week to RELAX, and boy, oh boy, he's been on fire.
Yeah, I guess he was right, huh? And he could spell too. Yeah, I think all is well in Packerville, considering the rest of the division doesn't look too formidable. They've already got one up on the Bears, and even though they lost to the Lions, they'll get them back in Lambeau. So I think the cheeseheads can relax and have a little bit of tranquility with the extra 3 days off.
There we go. So, we're going to get into the picks of the week here in just a moment. Before we do that, though, I know you always have some interesting NFL commentary for us. Talk to me.
I don't know if anyone caught this, but South Park did a fantastic, for lack of a better term, hatchet job on the NFL and the Washington Redskins. You should really check it out. I won't ruin the surprise, but one of my favorite parts is that Roger Goodell is portrayed as essentially a robot, and they even featured clips of him babbling on at his press conference, etc. And it just went to kind of reminded me how Goodell came out, really nothing's been resolved. He really hasn't said anything. And then this week, yet again, a breakthrough, the most archaic and stubborn and dumb rule in the NFL, the blackout rule, has been overturned by the FCC. And what do we find out? The NFL is going to challenge it. The sport that is so TV-friendly and is the greatest reality show, and we want to improve the experience for the viewers at home. We want to keep as few viewers as possible in Jacksonville and San Diego, etc., from seeing the games on Sundays.
Well, okay, and we've talked about the NFL and their greed before, but remember this too, okay? They just signed, I believe it was just this week, a new deal with DirecTV to keep the Sunday NFL ticket. They were getting $1 billion a year. That's going up to $1.4 billion. So that's an additional $400 million a year they're going to get for just doing the same thing they're getting, and they still want more off of that. They still want the blackout rule. Something, there's got to be something's got to give here.
Yeah, I don't get it. I'm surprised there hasn't been more uproar over this. But when you and I are paying $500 for Sunday ticket next year, we'll know why. I mean, the least they could do is lift that blackout rule. And then another thing that people in the rest of the country might not realize: Goodell did this little sneaky move a few years ago where he claimed that the San Diego Chargers are an LA market team. Last I checked, A, they've never been one, and B, we're, about a good hour and a half, 2 hours
Right.
away from LA without traffic. And, all that is, if you ask me, I think it's a way to see if the Chargers would eventually move to LA. I think it was kind of a trial balloon. And B, it just pisses us off here in LA who actually want to see a decent, Chargers-Broncos game. Not that it wouldn't be sold out, but let's say they missed out by a few thousand seats. We wouldn't watch that game in LA. So, yeah, that really hits home.
Yeah, exactly. And what really kind of sucks is that through it all, I still just love NFL football. And we didn't talk about J.J. Watt yet. I said 2 weeks ago I think he's the defensive player of the year, and here this weekend he picks off a pass and goes 80 yards. But I haven't seen a guy this inspirational really on that side of the ball. I mean, he almost fits in that, the Lawrence Taylor type of a category where it's not about the position there, but he's the most dominant player on that side of the ball.
Yeah, definitely. I thought of he, of course, and Reggie White as well. Just a guy where you can line him up anywhere along that line, and you're going to have to account for him, and you're probably still not going to stop him. And I heard an interesting stat this week that J.J. Watt is outscoring Arian Foster right now this year, so who would have thought?
Yeah, well, Arian Foster spends most of his time trying to appease the hamstring gods, so,
Hey, it's a very touchy subject.
It is, yes. And, you know, Houston's sitting at 3-1, but still, I think there's a lot of, that's kind of a glass house. I think there's some smoke and mirrors going on there. And how long can J.J. Watt is clearly the inspiration for that team, but how long can they do this, you know, with their offense not really doing what it needs to do? With Ryan Fitzpatrick at the helm, it just seems like a really shaky situation there in Houston.
Yeah, not very long, but yeah, it's it'll be fun while it lasts. You know, before long, we know the real Ryan Fitzpatrick will show up.
Yep. And you know what? It might happen this week. So let's go ahead and get into the picks of the week here. So last week, you know, Chris, you had a bad week. Mine was not much better. But overall, I'm sitting at 500. Chris is at 10-14. But, you know, that can be made up in the blink of an eye. And we'll go ahead and get into this week's picks here. So the first game, I'll break this one down first. The Texans at Dallas to take on the Cowboys. And the Cowboys, the great running with DeMarco Murray. The Texans, as we talked about, J.J. Watt being the real spark plug there, the catalyst. In Dallas, I'm going to go ahead. I'd love to take Houston because, hey, you know what? It's the Cowboys. But I'm going to have to say, being objective here, I got to say the Cowboys are going to win this game. I think they have too many weapons for the Texans.
Yeah, I'm unfortunately going to have to agree with you. I don't trust Ryan Fitzpatrick. Say what you will about Romo, but with Murray running the ball like that, you can't just key on the receivers anymore. I think Dallas's offensive line has been playing really well, keeping Romo standing up, which helps. And this patchwork defense, I don't know how they're doing it, but I really don't see the Houston offense presenting much of a challenge. It might be a low-scoring, grinded-out, boring kind of game, but ultimately the Cowboys prevail.
Yep, and you know, you can go ahead and break down this next one. The Atlanta Falcons we were talking about, sitting at 2-2 at New York to take on your Giants. What do you got for us?
You know, I've had this theme where I've been picking against the Giants, and it's working, and I'd love to do that again, being the superstitious fan I am, but you don't pay me to be a fan here. You pay me to be a commentator and alleged prognosticator. The Falcons, like you said, have a tremendous amount of injuries again, this time on the offensive line. Their defense got torched by Teddy Bridgewater and Matt Asiata. Yeah, you heard that right. And I just don't think in general they're a good road team. The Giants are gelling. Never mind the offensive side of the ball. We may actually get an Odell Beckham sighting this week. He's another one with his hamstring. But Giants' defense has been playing well. They're starting to get more cohesive and actual sightings of Mr. JPP. So I'm going to go with the Giants at home. They continue the streak.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they're really rounding into form now. And it took Eli a couple of weeks to get used to that the new offense there from McAdoo, but I like the way they're playing. I think they're rolling well, and I think this is a good setup here for the Falcons, who are kind of injured right now. The Giants keep it rolling, get their third win in a row. I'm in agreement.
We are either doomed or we're going to have a good week, Charles.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever. We're both going to go down with the ship here, I think. But this next game may give us a little bit of action. Baltimore Ravens coming off the big win last week where they just smothered Carolina. At the Indianapolis Colts. Colts started off slow, but now they're rolling too. Got a couple of wins in a row. Andrew Luck, Reggie Wayne playing at home. This is going to be a great game. I'll go ahead and say that right off the bat. Great game. This one's too close. I'm going to go with the home team here. I'm going to go with Andrew Luck and the Colts to win this game, probably by 2 or 3 points, but I'm going to go with the Colts. I'm going to go with the home team.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you. I think it will be a good game. The Ravens have really surprised me this year. Steve Smith, as you alluded to earlier, has really looked revitalized and drinking from the fountain of youth, apparently. But that said, I don't think the Ravens have really faced an offense like the one the Colts have played. I don't know what's gotten into them. If Pep Hamilton finally realizes that Trent Richardson should really just sit on the bench and Andrew Luck needs to throw more, I think that's ultimately the difference. You've got to stop Andrew Luck, and I don't see the Ravens doing that. Even if it's a close game and it comes down to crunch time, I'm going with the Colts.
Yep. Okay, and then Let's give us this next game here. This will be kind of a battle of imperfect teams. The Bears, just coming off of a beatdown last week, at Carolina to take on the Panthers, who have just come off 2 straight beatdowns. Go ahead and break this one down for us.
Yeah, 2 real struggling teams that are sputtering here now that a lot of people expected more from. As I had said earlier, with no one to run the ball for Carolina and no one for Cam Newton to throw to, that concerns me as good as that defense is. The Bears seem to be for lack of a better word, a schizophrenic team up and down. Cutler really had a poor game. I think they bounced back this week. I'll take Cutler. I think, with Alshon Jeffrey and Brandon Marshall and Matt Forte, I'll take those any day of the week over God knows who is playing offense for the Panthers around camp.
Yeah, and, Panthers should have a bit of an edge at home, but, like I say, with teams that haven't been good that long, once they get a couple of tough losses, they start to slip back into some old habits. Cam Newton, I think, may be taking a little bit too much on his shoulders. Also, they don't really have a run game right now. So the Bears' defense, I think, is going to be opportunistic here, and I'm going with the Bears, too.
Can we just disagree once, please?
Well, maybe we'll disagree on this one.
All right.
Arizona Cardinals, undefeated at 3-0 in Denver to take on the Broncos, coming off the bye week here. Cardinals, it's going to be Drew Stanton starting again, but this time it'll be in the Mile High City. Cardinals against the Broncos. As well as the Cardinals are playing, there's only a few teams that can beat Peyton Manning in the regular season. I don't think the Cardinals are one of them. I'm going to have to go Broncos on this one.
Charles, normally I would agree with you, but for some reason I think the Cardinals are some sort of team of destiny this year. I don't know why, I don't know how, but when I heard that Carson Palmer wasn't playing, I actually figured, you know what, I wouldn't be surprised for the Cardinals to go in there. Well, let's face it, Denver they played a nice second half against the Seahawks up there in Seattle, the toughest place to play in the league. But other than that, I haven't been that impressed with their offense. Defense really hasn't been much to write home about this year. They've done enough, but they seem to bend and barely break in the fourth quarter this season. And what the heck? Larry Fitzgerald has done nothing this year. He's been really quiet, and I'll just go out on a limb and say he has his breakout game. I like the way the Cardinals' defense is playing. I'll go for the upset. I mean, I have nothing to lose after a 1-5 week, right? I'm looking forward to this game. I was looking forward to it more, and then I realized Joe Buck and Troy Aikman are calling it, so I'll enjoy it on mute.
Well, you know what? As long as you can always pick an upset, as long as your upset is based on sound reasoning, because that's how we roll here. So, we just disagree on this game. I'm just picking the favorite, the home team, and a great regular season quarterback. So let's go ahead, and if you could, please, the Kansas City Chiefs at the brand new Levi Stadium up there in Santa Clara against the San Francisco 49ers. Niners finally got right a little bit, but all kinds of talk about strife in the dressing room. And, Jonathan Martin must think he's cursed at this point, right? He gets out of Miami and then goes to another toxic situation in San Francisco. So how do you see this one? The Chiefs coming off a big win and against the Niners who just scraped by.
That's right. People forgot about him. Look, 2 teams that a lot of people had buried for proverbially being dead, and they seem to have rebounded. I'm going with the 49ers here. I really like the way their defense played. Whatever strife there is or isn't in the locker room, some people deny it. Some say it's real. Some say Harbaugh's got one foot out the door. I think that I like the way the D's playing. Kaepernick, for all his faults and delays of game and timeouts and everything, I think he'll finally figure things out. And even though the Chiefs played a nice game, ultimately I don't like them on the road, and I think the 49ers got a heck of a lot more offensive weapons than the Patriots had, and if they can stop the run with Shady McCoy, I think they can do the same to Jamal Charles, so I'm going Niners.
All right, and, I think that Alex Smith is going to have a little bit more incentive to go ahead and beat the 49ers when he goes up there because, of course, that was where he got benched and then ultimately booted out of town, was when he was playing with the Niners, got benched for he kind of lost a starting job for no real reason just because they just wanted Kaepernick. So he's going to have that incentive going for him. I like the way Charles ran against the Patriots. I think it's going to be a great game. and I'm going to go with the Chiefs in this game. I like the way Alex Smith played. I'm not a big Alex Smith fan, but he showed me something against the Patriots, and Jamal Charles is running with a purpose, and against an imperfect San Francisco 49ers team. I like the Chiefs.
Thank you for disagreeing with me. I'm sure you just increased your lead by 2 games, but at least we're not picking the same games and the same winners or losers.
Okay, so that's it for the picks this week. So before we sign off here, have you got anything else for us there, Mr. Lardieri?
Yeah, I'd be interested to see is with MLB baseball playoffs in the swing of things now that October's rolled around. I'm curious to see come Monday how the ratings look, to see what gets a better rating. There are some good matchups in the NFL this weekend, but they're not any of these must-watch ones like a Broncos Seahawks from a couple weeks ago. So
right.
Just something to keep your eye on. But my guess is the NFL will probably outrate it again, as good as the baseball's been thus far the past few days. So should be interesting. But that said, I do know that none of the baseball playoff games are blacked out.
Yep. And, let me ask you let's talk about a little bit, just have a couple of minutes here, but what do you think of the Lions? We didn't talk about them much this week, but the way they played so far, and, Stafford getting the key first down last week to ice the game. Are the Lions maybe turning the corner here?
I don't know. Every time I do think that, they go and take a step back. I think it's impressive that they beat the Packers. But you look at the first week, they beat up a Giants team that was in complete disarray. And you look at this week, they beat the Jets. Geno Smith is a mess.
Yeah.
Rex has done another fine job of creating some sort of train wreck or car accident there, football-wise. But even that game, they really. I watched some of it. They had multiple chances to put them away, and they didn't, and the Jets hung around. The Jets played a terrible game, and we're still in that game at the end. That says a lot. Calvin Johnson has really been quiet, too, which is another thing that concerns me. I know teams are keying on him, but, this isn't the Calvin Johnson who would, jump for the ball in double coverage or find a way to get
right.
open and persevere. So that's one thing to keep your eye on. And then ultimately, see how Reggie Bush performs and if he holds up the whole rest of the year. Because if they can run the ball, it takes a lot of pressure off of Stafford.
Yeah. So what you're saying is we just have to wait and see with the Lions, like we do every year.
Yeah, because you know what? They'll have, even when they get to these great starts, they'll go and do something, just something idiotic like Schwartz did last year. I can't remember. Was it the snow game against the Eagles or was it against the Steelers where he called for the fake field goal and that turned the game? I believe it was the Steelers. So there was always some sort of turning point for the Lions, and we're only one quarter of the way into the season. Let's see. I mean, look, I'd like to see them do better. Detroit deserves a winner, especially in football. It's a struggling town, and you'd like to see them do better. You know what? Regardless of what happens, I think the good news is Ndamukong Suh came out this week and said he'd like to go play in New York. And what a more perfect team to go play for than the Jets. I don't know of one. So good riddance.
Okay, and then one other team that's been up and down, also AFC team, but the Pittsburgh Steelers. And we look at this. I look at the Steelers, and to me, they are so close to being a good team, a true factor there. But in this game, this weekend against Tampa Bay, it's the first few minutes they give up a 10-0 lead, and then they blow the game with 45 seconds to play. So the Steelers, to me, are just on the cusp of being a great team. How do you see that?
I agree, and that was inexcusable to lose a game like that to the Buccaneers. I know Mike Glennon played a great game, but Mike Glennon is not, I don't know, he's not Russell Wilson, he's not Andrew Luck. Serviceable, good quarterback. Heck, he may be better than Josh McCown, but to have that many penalties, that's very un-Steeler-like. To have the defense allow Lewis Murphy, who was literally out on the street earlier that week without a job, jettisoned by the Giants and the Raiders, to catch the ball over the middle and be that wide open, not very Steeler-like. So I know the offense is putting the points up, but again, the problems lie on the defensive side of the ball, and they need to address those if they're going to be a contender.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so we're about ready to sign off here, everybody. So remember, watch us every single week, whether you watch us on Vimeo or YouTube, or if you watch us live or recorded on Ustream, you will find us. I'm Charles E. Smith Jr., so remember, every week, join us right here for NFL Football Talk, which is an Inside Sports production. Follow me on Twitter at The Inside Sports. Follow Chris on Twitter at Chris L Sports. So with that said, we'll see everybody next week. You enjoy Week 5 of NFL football. Thanks for watching.